Imagine living the life of your dreams as a 24-year-old and organizing a fun Halloween party. And that Halloween party going on to becoming the last party you'll ever get to attend. Tonight's story is just about that. Welcome to Welted Marigold, where we share dark and mysterious stories from South Asia and beyond. I'm your storyteller Ambika, and tonight's story is about Arpana Janaga. This is Redmond, Washington, the very heart of the American dreamscape. Think glass towers, relentless ambition, and giants like Microsoft. It's here that Arpana Janaga, a brilliant 24-year-old software engineer from Hyderabad, India, was building her future. But in the pre-dawn hours of November 1st, 2008, something happened. Something very bad. It was the morning after a massive, chaotic Halloween party at the Valley View Apartments. For 2 whole days, a terrible secret sat locked behind a damaged door until a friend, worried sick, sent by her parents, sitting thousands of miles away in India, finally pushed past that broken lock. The scene inside was horrifying. On the bedroom carpet was Arpana, strangled, sexually assaulted, her vibrant life brutally extinguished. This isn't just a story, it's a forensic nightmare. A crime scene contaminated with multiple DNAs, discarded costumes, and a gallery of suspects who were quite literally next-door neighbors and party guests. It's a story of how an Indian immigrant woman's dream became an American horror story, and how years later the truth remains unknown. To truly understand this tragedy, you must first know who Arpana was. Born in Hyderabad, India, around 1984, Arpana Janaga was the product of a highly educated family. Her singular drive for knowledge instilled by her father, a computer engineering professor. She wasn't just smart, she was a natural intellect and a tech prodigy. Friends described her as a hummingbird of energy, fearlessly independent, deeply loyal, and a lover of speed, often found riding with her motorcycle club. Even in her early 20s, while the city of Hyderabad was evolving into a global tech hub, Arpana's brilliance was just undeniable. She was sharp, focused, and won international awards for her chip designs while still completing her undergraduate studies. It was clear her future belonged to the world stage. As her father later recalled, we knew she was destined for bigger things. The award for the chip, that was a proof. To reach that stage, Arpana joined millions of other high-achieving South Asian students who saw America as the critical next step. She secured her place at Rutgers University in New Jersey, where she earned a master's degree in computer science, meticulously crafting her professional blueprint. With her credentials solidified, Arpana was immediately snapped up by the tech industry. The ultimate destination for an elite software engineer was the Pacific Northwest, and in March 2008, she moved to Redmond, Washington, the heart of the tech empire, to take a plum job at Dell EMC. She quickly earned a promotion as well and was excelling at the classic immigrant dream. The Valley View complex wasn't just an apartment for her. It was her personal foothold in a new world, a castle she had only just begun to build, and one that was about to turn to ruins. October 31st, 2008, the date of the costume party. Arpana and her roommates were co-hosts. This wasn't a small shindig. There were residents, friends, and their guests. Dozens of people, some sources say up to 50, were cycling in and out of the apartments throughout the night. Halloween offers the perfect camouflage if you think about it. Mass, elaborate makeup, and costumed anonymity turn a public space into a private free-for-all. A stranger can blend seamlessly into the crowd. Faces are obscured, movements are fluid, and the constant noise and chaotic atmosphere mean few people are paying real attention to who enters or leaves or when they do. 50 people, neighbors, friends, and strangers passed through that night. And that's 50 witnesses and 50 potential suspects. Among the guests were Emanuel Fair, the man in a construction worker outfit, and then there was a volatile next-door neighbor, Cameron Johnson. As the night wore on, the crowd thinned. Arpana was last seen alive, leaving a friend's unit, walking back to her own around 3 a.m. The unit with the easily bypassed broken lock. Next morning on November 1st, 2008, one neighbor, Kyle Rose, was awakened by sounds coming from Arpana's apartment. Around 8 a.m. on Saturday, November 1st, describing hearing a horrible growling, followed by a thud. However, he did not investigate or call the police at that time. Arpana was discovered 2 days later on Monday, November 3rd, 2008. She was discovered when her family in India grew worried about her because she had missed several of her daily calls to them. They contacted a family friend in the Seattle area, Jay Bodhicharla, and asked him to check on her. Bodhicharla went to her Redmond apartment, found the door locked damaged, and entered with another neighbor. Cameron Johnson, remember this name. They found her body inside the bedroom and notified the authorities. When police finally entered, they found Arpana was killed between 3:30 a.m. and 8 a.m. that Saturday. She was gagged with her underwear and duct tape, strangled with a shoelace, and suffered blunt force trauma. Her attacker had clearly attempted a chemical cover-up, a bleach trail, a comforter shoved in the tub, and a thick coating of motor oil on her body. Adding to the mystery, her phone, her camera, and ID were all missing. The crime scene was a perverse, confusing mess, a forensic masterpiece suggesting a chillingly thorough attempt to destroy the evidence. It didn't feel like a crime of passion, something that was done on an impulse. This felt planned. Investigators found multiple male profile DNAs, but two in particular became the focus. First, Cameron Johnson. Yes, the name I asked you to remember. The next-door neighbor. His DNA was found on a bottle of motor oil in a dumpster bag, and that oil matched the substance on Arpana's body. Phone records showed he called her apartment twice right around 3 a.m. the hour she disappeared. Johnson later admitted he was sexually attracted to her, yet the state granted him immunity for his testimony. A controversial move that would forever shadow this case. The second DNA profile belonged to Emanuel Fair, the outsider in the construction worker costume, who had a prior criminal record. This profile was the one that prosecution would later bet everything on. Fair's DNA was reportedly found on a critical triad of evidence, on Arpana's neck, on the duct tape used to gag her, and mixed with blood on her bathrobe, which was found in that same dumpster bag. Fair was an outsider, physically imposing, and an easy target for suspicion, given his history. He maintained his innocence, but his trace DNA on the actual instruments of the assault painted him as the villain in the state's narrative. 2 years after, the state charged Emanuel Fair with first degree. But what followed was a decade-long, agonizing, two-act legal drama that essentially put modern forensic science and police procedure on trial. This case became a war of the DNAs. The state insisted the location of Fair's DNA proved his lethal hands on role. The defense counterattacked with the concept of touch DNA or secondary transfer, arguing that in a packed party, finding trace DNA from multiple people was unavoidable. They pointed to the multiple other male profiles and argued police had engaged in confirmation bias, focusing on Fair's past while ignoring evidence potentially implicating Johnson. The legal journey was absolutely brutal. The first trial in 2017 ended in a hung jury, split 6-6. Then happened the second trial in 2019. Fair faced this trial again. The defense successfully attacked the investigation's flaws, and on June 11, 2019, the jury returned a verdict: Fair not guilty. Emanuel Fair walked free physically, but forever scarred. He sued the investigators, alleging malicious prosecution and racial bias. The legal system had closed the chapter on Fair, but for Arpana Janaga, the case remained and remains unsolved. The acquittal left a terrible void. For Arpana's parents, it was a second murder, the final erasure of their daughter's quest for any kind of justice and truth. The legacy of this case is a chilling indictment of how flawed initial police work, complex science, and human bias can combine to let a violent crime escape accountability. All Arpana sought was a secure future, believing that working hard was her shield in this world. Yet the place she chose to build her future became the stage for her undoing. The killer wasn't a stranger. It was someone invited in, someone wearing a mask that still hasn't come off. There are three theories that have been presented for this case. Theory 1. The first theory suggests a terrifying partnership. The fact that Johnson's oil bottle and Fair's bloody garment were discarded together in the same bag points toward a coordinated cleanup. Fair was the physical aggressor, his DNA on Arpana's neck from the strangulation. Johnson was the collaborator, handling the bizarre cleanup, coating the body in oil to destroy trace evidence. They worked in tandem to commit the murder and dispose of the evidence. Theory 2. The theory that the prosecution chose to focus on is the most compelling in terms of the DNA link. Emanuel Fair. The theory points that Fair acted alone, driven by his confirmed proximity to the attack. The DNA on Arpana's neck and the presence of his DNA on her bloody robe meant he had been in fatal, intimate contact with her. The motor oil linked to Johnson was dismissed as either a secondary contamination from the party or an unrelated piece of garbage, an insignificant distraction from the primary killer. Now on to theory 3, the final theory, often argued by the defense, that the massive, chaotic Halloween party made all the DNA evidence unreliable. With dozens of people touching, drinking, and moving through the small apartment space, almost any DNA could have been transferred through secondary contamination. This theory suggests an unknown individual committed the and the DNA of Fair and Johnson was simply two of many irrelevant genetic profiles scattered throughout the apartment, turning the entire forensic picture into a cloud of doubt. 2 trials attempted to prove one of these theories, but the mixed evidence proved too confusing for the juries. Both trials ended without a conviction. Today, Arpana Janaga's case is the story of a brilliant immigrant woman's promising life cut short, remains legally unsolved, swallowed by the darkness and anonymity of a Halloween night. I'm inclined to believe that Emanuel, whose DNA was on her neck and bloody robe, was actually the person who committed the crime. In either case, the true perpetrator of this heinous crime walks free. And what's tragic is that the most terrifying monsters in a story like this aren't the ones that we can definitively name and punish, but the ones who successfully hide in the anonymity of the crowd, leaving the ghost of Halloween to forever haunt the silence of the unsolved. Who do you think walked free? This marks the end of this episode. Until the next episode, stay kind, stay safe.